everyone, and welcome to the Mountainside Podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Marshall, and today's guest is Martin Barwick. He is a Jefferson County Open Space Park Ranger. We had a great conversation today. He wasn't able to come in studio, so we took the studio to him, and we actually recorded our first outdoor podcast. There were a few challenges, but I'd be open to doing it again. It was great being outside. It was a beautiful day. We had a great conversation. We covered a lot of the basic rules of the park, and then also some of the advisories that they've put in place during this COVID-19 pandemic. So there's some great information in there. It's a great listen, and I urge everybody to listen to the entire episode.
I'm doing good.
Well, hello, Martin. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's a beautiful day out here.
Oh, man, it's gorgeous. I can't believe we're doing the podcast outside.
Yeah.
This is awesome. This is a record for us. I don't know if it is for podcasts. I don't know if there's ever been a podcast recorded outside. I'm sure somebody's done it. There's a million of them out there, you know. But I wanted to thank you for your time.
Sure.
I know you weren't able to come in the studio, so that's why we came out here, because you guys are super busy. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I just really appreciate you guys taking the time and spending it with us for about an hour or so we can go through some of the park rules and some of the recent stuff that's coming up too with the whole COVID-19 deal.
Absolutely. Appreciate the opportunity to come out and talk about things that are going on in our parks and helping our visitors, setting them up for success. So appreciate you guys doing this.
Yeah, man. Anytime. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your background and kind of how you got started into this? We'll just touch on that real briefly and what you do for Jefferson County.
Sure. I've been a park ranger this is my 20th year now. 15 and a half of those with Jefferson County Open Space. So I'm now the park ranger supervisor. I've been doing that for about 4 years here. We have we have 21 full-time rangers, and right now we got 4 on seasonally, so 25 rangers on our team. So I moved out here from Ohio in 1992. And just always had a love for the outdoors, you know, grew up camping, fishing, hiking, all that good stuff. And then just moved out here to Colorado where that's just part of what we do. Right?
Yeah, that's what it's all about, right?
It's a natural thing here to do. So just wanted to find a career that, you know, got me into what is meaningful to me, and found a career in serving people and also sort of protecting our resources here. Is very satisfying. So that's kind of how I got into being a park ranger and what I've been doing the last 20 years.
That's great. I mean, that's kind of the whole concept of the show, is to help educate people on what you guys do and what you guys do to protect these great spots. You know, we have a great view today. That's on camera, which we normally don't get in a dark, dungy, you know, studio. So yeah, it's we kind of really basically wanted to go over maybe just some of the basic rules, because I feel like maybe people don't mean to do things.
Sure.
That it's not intended, right? It's just education. Mm-hmm. And you get excited when you drive up from Denver and you don't see this every day. Mm-hmm. You get a little excited. Maybe you just hit the trail and you don't read the rules and regulations. Who reads the rules, right? So can we go over just some of the basic rules in the park, like things that you guys really, I know there's a ton of them and we probably can't hit on every single little detail, but just some of the basic ones and some of the most common problems or issues that you guys run across, not considering COVID-19 right now, but just basic rules if none of this pandemic was going on.
Right, pre-COVID. The pre-COVID world. It's all of our regulations that we have in Jeffco Open Space. We try to strike this balance between allowing people the opportunity to come to these parks and have healthy nature-based experiences. So that's, you know, fishing, riding, hiking, camping, things like that, climbing. And we balance that with protecting the resource that we're seeing here today. And that includes the wildlife, the vegetation, the facilities, you know, the trails and things like that. So we try to strike a balance. And so all the regulations are set up to do that. And we our philosophy is just like you hit it right on the head. People are excited to come to a park. They want to get out. They probably want to stop and read the rules first. It'd be great if they did.
Right.
Even if they got online and checked them out before they even
That's
came.
been the story of my life.
Yeah, that'd be even better. But we understand people don't do that. So the ranger team, our philosophy is to come in and educate people first, and that can be with a friendly contact, right? Just a ranger talking to that person on the trail, letting them know why that regulation is important, and getting a sense that we want them to follow that in the future, and getting some understanding between us that they will. That's how we'd like to see those go. Sometimes they don't always go quite that way, and
Sure.
we'll step it up to a ticket and that kind of thing. So we write tickets and we enforce our rules. But probably the most common one, or the biggest one we see, is just the dogs off leash, right? Because
Right.
lots of people own dogs. They want to let them run, just like we want to get out in the open air. They want their dog to run. That regulation really gets right to that compromise that I just talked about of, protecting the resource and allowing people to recreate. So dogs are allowed, but they got to be on a leash at all times. There's some places where you can run your dog off leash. There's some places where dogs aren't allowed at all. Our compromise is right there in the middle. Dogs are welcome, just leash them and keep them under control. And that is to protect the wildlife, deer, and other animals, and even predators, coyotes,
Sure.
and things like that. They become nervous around off-leash dogs. They will act differently. It might cause that deer or whatever to run, to scatter, and then there's not that energy to escape a mountain lion later in the day, that kind of thing. Dogs go out in the field, they can get bit by a rattlesnake, they can trample a bird's nest. So probably our number one complaint that we hear is dogs
They're
running off
mischievous.
leash. They are.
Even
So
though they're our best friends,
they
they're
are best
mischievous.
friends,
That's
but-
probably why they're our best friends.
Right, and they got a mind of their own. They're very
Right.
much like us in a lot of ways like that. So that's the number one, is please come to the park with your dog on a leash at all times.
Sure.
And it's the protection of your dog too, okay? And also our visitors. There's a lot of visitors that are afraid of dogs, or don't want dogs around. We have dog bites in our park, so that those things happen.
I've actually been bitten in your park.
Have you?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
that's-
run in the mornings. I actually got to get out this morning, which was awesome.
Yeah.
And I use your guys' parks a lot because I live
Yeah.
in Jefferson County.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually had my dog with me, and I think that my dog probably instigated it,
Uh-huh.
but it was a dog off leash. Well, I had mine on leash,
Mhm.
and then I had to get in between them.
Right.
And, the lady's like apologizing to me. She's like, I'm so sorry this never happens. Well, we got to remember these are animals, right? And certain things can trigger them or to act aggressively, and probably if they're in a park, they're in a new environment, so they're going to be a heightened sense of awareness
Right.
as well.
Absolutely. And,
Yeah.
and like you said, dogs are dogs, and they're unpredictable. People are unpredictable at times.
Yeah,
And just like you said, you've got your dog on a leash, and another dog approaches that's off leash.
Uh-huh.
Maybe your dog doesn't know quite how to handle that, and so that leash dog might get aggressive. It's a recipe for disaster. And we'll talk about COVID a little bit here, like you said, in a while, but also that interaction. Now you have to jump in and be in close proximity with a person and everything
Yeah.
like that. It's just not good. So, and then on the topic of dogs, literally, if we want to go to the tail end of that too, it's really important that people pick up their dog poop right away.
okay.
At most of our trailheads, we have dog bag dispensers that are stocked with old grocery bags. Or
Yeah,
bread
that's
bags, that
great
kind of thing.
concept too.
So it's we're recycling those bags, or reusing those bags, I should say, putting them to a good use. It's important that people pick that up right away and they take it with them. Either dispose of it, but if they're not around a trash can, they need to pack it out. We don't.
Yeah,
let
that's
them-
one of my biggest pet
Yeah.
peeves. Like, I run all the time. I'm like, in my opinion, it's almost better to leave it on the ground. If you're not going to
Yeah.
bag it, maybe you don't have a bag, okay?
Right.
And I don't know what your guys' take is on this, and that's one reason why we're sitting down together. But, I think it's better to, I think people don't want to carry it with them.
Yep.
And I found myself, and this is just my own thing, and I'm trying to teach my kids, if we run across litter on the trail, this is public land. We own this too.
Right.
This is your property.
Right.
Pick it up like you would at home. And
Absolutely.
we bring a trash bag with us every time that we go.
That's fantastic.
And I end up carrying a lot of dog crap home.
Yep.
And I don't know why I do it, but I don't like seeing it on the trail in a bag. I don't mind if it's there, it's like, oh, don't step in it. It's like walking in your yard, There's going to be the occasional landmine, but please don't bag it and just leave it on the trail or at a tree. And I think the intention is probably to pick it up when they come back, but still, we are in this beautiful spot. Even if you're going to pick it up on your way back, that's the last thing you want to see is a plastic bag or any sort of litter.
It's an eyesore. It's gross, right? And I agree with you 100%. I think people, once they've bagged it and they leave it there, they have the good intentions of coming back, but oftentimes they don't, right? They go another way or they forget, and it's up to people like you then to pick it up, or the rangers to pick it up, or our park services team to pick it up. And it's gross. It's an eyesore. People don't want to see that when they come out here. So it's really important people bag it, pick it up right away, take it with them. And, definitely we don't want the unbagged stuff sitting around either, just
You're right.
The bacteria and everything that goes into the ground and the groundwater, that's bad too. It's bad here out here for the environment and the native vegetation. So really that's just part of that, being a responsible dog owner and sort of knowing these things before you come to the park. So make sure you got your leash, make sure you got some bags in case there's none here at the dispenser when you arrive. Just make sure you have those things and you're ready to go, and you're taking care of yourself and your pet too. So it's for the safety of everyone involved. So dogs is a huge thing. I think another thing we do at Jeffco Open Space that really tries to strike that balance between getting people out and enjoying the outdoors, but also protecting our resources, are seasonal and temporary closures we do for that kind of thing. We do seasonal closures for nesting raptors, eagles, hawks, and falcons, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Making sure we provide that buffer so those birds on a cliff or on a tree don't have people looking down at them or walking right under their nest, to make sure that they can sort of rear their young. And those closures go from February through July. Especially really important in climbing areas and things like that. We don't want people climbing around nests, especially gaining above them. That would really stress out a bird, maybe cause it to take off and abandon that nest. So we close parks in the spring and in the fall for mud. So it's really important to respect that. When the trails are so muddy that now there's no chance of people going through that. Although
I see them start cutting paths around it,
We've widened the trails. We create new trails, especially in the spring. Then you're sort of beating down that vegetation that's trying to come up. So we will close parks or sections of parks for mud. So it's really important, I think, to respect that. Closures, whenever you see that, we'll anything we do, we put it on Facebook, we put it on our website, we have signage at the parks. We try to get that information out and really set people up for success, so they have a chance to do the right thing and know the importance of why we may have a closure. We just don't do it just because we want to keep people out of that area for some reason. There's always a valid reason and science behind it.
Sure. And we want to help you with that. We have a pretty good platform here, and all of our listeners pretty much use mountain lifestyle of some sort, right? They're mountain bikers, rock climbers,
right?
X, Y, and Z. But yeah, if you guys ever need to spread a message or anything like that, please contact me, and we'll make sure that we let our listeners know. So,
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
that'd be a great resource, and just getting the word out to as many people as we can is really helpful.
Sure.
One change we did a couple years ago is for fire danger, is we went to banning fires in our parks completely. We used to have charcoal grills. We have 3 campsites, and we had fire pits at the campsites and charcoal grills at picnic areas. When the county goes into a fire ban that bans that, it's a lot of work for us then to cover all those grills, cover all those fire pits, put out all the signage, and then at the same time come out of those fire bans. It's again a lot of work. And our parks, so many of them are surrounded by residential areas or this urban wildland interface like we have up here in Evergreen. And as we have more and more visitors and fire danger is ever present here in Jeffco and Colorado, we went to the point of just banning fires in our parks completely at all times.
It makes sense.
Yep.
Such a huge danger.
Yeah, so there's not the confusion of coming in and out of fire bans. It's just like you can't have a fire in Jeffco Open Space, and that includes charcoal grills or wood fires. You can have a gas stove or camp stove, something you can use to shut it off.
Oh, okay.
Completely. And so we feel that's a safer route to be able to grill your burgers or whatever and still be able to do that, but not have that fire danger.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Can we circle back a little bit to going off trail, just because I don't know exactly where the line in the sand or the gravel or rock or whatever is up here in the Rocky Mountains. When can you go off trail? So say that you're trying to get to a bouldering area, or maybe you have a mountain biker passing you. Yeah. And that's another thing I want to touch on here in a minute is mountain bikes, but we'll stick to this subject for a second. When isn't it acceptable to actually step off the trail at any time, or cut your own path? Or
so that's a fantastic question. Thanks for bringing that up. Different park systems have different regulations, and I'm thinking of like Roxborough State Park. That's a stay-on-trail park completely. You have to stay on the trail.
And it's posted everywhere.
And it's posted. Jeffco Open Space is not like that, okay? We would like people to stay on trail and use the trails. We feel like our trailheads and our trail system is what brings people into the park, and that should be your mode of transportation. We have specific areas where we say stay on trail, okay? Specific trails or specific parks. A specific park would be South Valley Park, where you have to stay on trail. We got some really attractive red rock formations in that park that are surrounded by vegetation that really provide great wildlife habitat, and those rocks are magnets for for people to come and get out there. So we have at that park specifically, it's stay on trail, okay? But most of our parks aren't managed that way. So unless you see a specific sign that says this is an area closure or this trail is stay on trail, people can go off trail. We would just ask that they do that responsibly. We would ask that concentrate your use on the trail, but we know that people want to get out and explore and that kind of thing. We don't like to see undesignated trails pop up. So for instance, there's a rock you like to walk out to, but now you do it every day and there's a trail and everyone else is using that. We'll try to close those because those trails aren't sustainable, right? We haven't thought about erosion or features on that trail to make them sustainable. So usually we just need to close those. But as far as people sort of, dispersing and going off trail, they are allowed to do that in Jeffco Open Space unless they see a specific area that says they can't do that.
Okay, so there'll be a posted sign there or something letting them know. Yeah. And I've also seen on some of the trails, because like I grew up here, or grew up in Jefferson County, used these parks for a long time. And there's a ton of new ones that I haven't used. But I noticed some of the old trails you guys have shut down, and they're not necessarily posted, but there's obstruction. So there'll be like a chunk of log or something every 6 feet or whatever, just to keep mountain bikers off of it. Or is it acceptable to hike on those, or what's the...
So unfortunately, if you've come across sort of a barrier with no signage there, we got to do better at getting out there. That's okay. Either old that has fallen off or been ripped off or something like that. We don't expect to put a barrier out there and have people interpret what that piece of wood means or something. We want it to be accompanied with a sign. So what we'll usually do is there's different, the land sort of dictates how you're going to reclaim a trail.
Yeah, and so you can jump off a trail at any time, so you guys can't post signs everywhere.
And it's hard sometimes because in a big open meadow, it's a little bit harder than if you're sort of hemmed in by trees and things like that to close it down. But generally what we'll do is put up some sort of physical barrier with a sign, and usually we'll try to reclaim it. There'll be like vegetation matting. We try to get it seeded up. We churn up the ground and things like that to allow vegetation to come back. So if you're seeing just an old wood barrier there, it's probably something that was old and we didn't get back to it. So you should see signs directing you to where we don't want you to go and where we want you to go.
Perfect. That's a great explanation. Yeah. So the next subject that I wanted to cover, if we can change subjects here a little bit, unless you have any more on that.
No, it sounds good.
Okay. Yeah. Mountain bikers, I know it's posted that mountain bikers are supposed to yield to people, but I've noticed every walk I've ever been on with my family or anything, it's the etiquette is kind of flipped. I find that I guess hikers or whatever tend to hop off trail to let mountain bikers go by.
Yeah.
What is your guys' take on that? And is there a right or a wrong way? I mean, basically, you just don't want to cause any collisions or any accidents, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's sort of yielding order, or the bike courtesy, or trail courtesy, and the regulations we go through for sharing the trail are aimed at just that, right? We don't want collisions or conflict, and we don't want people getting stressed out and having to jump off the trail. We want you to come to the park and have an enjoyable, reasonably safe experience, right? So that's why all those regulations are set up. So the regulation states that people on wheels, or visitors on wheels, mostly mountain bikes, but
Pedal bikes, right? No electric, no motorized.
We do allow e-bikes.
Oh, you do?
So
Okay.
Class 1 e-bikes are allowed on all trails where we allow bikes. Okay. Class 2 e-bikes are allowed on paved trails where we allow bikes, and we manage them just like every other bike. Every other bike. Okay. They follow the same regulations.
If you need to take that radio call or anything, don't feel like you have to turn it off. It's not going to affect us.
That's fine right now.
Okay.
I'm good. Thank you.
Yep.
So we do. We went through a 1 year, or I'm sorry, we went through a survey and a study, an intercept survey out in the parks to get people's reaction to e-bikes. And we went out in the parks and we called them ghost riders. They were volunteers and rangers in plain clothes riding e-bikes.
Undercover,
just in a loop.
Right on.
And then we talked to people about their experiences with an e-bike and getting passed. And most of them didn't even know they were getting passed by
Yeah, those things are super quiet.
They're quiet.
They're almost deadly quiet.
Yeah, and they are. So we're at the point right now where we just figure as long as they're following the regulations that we set forward, then we're good. And their impact is not really any different than a regular bike. So, but then getting back to the courtesy and the regulation, you're right. So people on wheels, bikes, and sometimes unicycles, we see that.
Yeah, I saw it. I think it was a father and son the other day. Like, I was out running, and they passed me on a unicycle, and I was thinking, that's got to be freaking hard to ride. I mean, there's no suspension or anything, and you know the terrain. It's not... Even though that there's a trail and we have a nice graded trail in front of us, as soon as you get 100 yards that way, you got rocks and obstacles to go over. It's not all easy.
It's amazing those folks can do that.
Yeah.
It's impressive. But so people on wheels, they yield to all other, okay? And then people on foot, we yield to equestrians, right? That's the order. Everyone yields to the equestrians, okay? And what yielding means is communicating at no less than 15 feet. Is you got to call out, hey, I'm coming up. Can I pass you? That kind of thing. Do it.
Sure. On your left, on your right.
Yeah. Just be nice, like you would want to be talked to. And then people need to slow down to a walking speed, and that's about 3 miles an hour. Okay.
Yeah, that's another thing that I don't see all the time. Because they're bombing the mountain. So
that's what we're trying to get to, right? Is people slowing down to a safe walking speed, so you don't feel like you're getting, just bombed by, and that would include runners coming downhill can be moving pretty fast.
Okay, yeah.
So we don't want to get people bullied off the trail and that kind of thing, and make sure people are being safe and having a good experience. That's the law, and that's the regulation, and that's what we enforce. You talked about people. Do they need to step off the trail? No, you don't need to, but that's great. I think if you see a mountain biker, huffing uphill. Technically he still needs to move out of the way for you, but if you can help him out and just move aside or her out and let them go through, I think that's just a great way to share the park and be courteous. If you want to step off trail and let a bike come through, I think that's great. I think that's a good way to share the trail. If it's to the point of jumping off the trail in fear for your life and you felt like you had no choice, we certainly don't want to see that. And
I don't think I've ever seen that. I mean, I've been on the trail with my family.
That's
we're out a lot, but
so going by the letter of the law, mountain bikes yield to everyone, and that may mean if it's on a narrow trail, that if it's not even safe to go at a walking speed, that might be stopping and moving to the side of the trail. But if people are out and they just want to let everyone to try to enjoy the park as much as they can, and bikes are coming by safely, and you want to step to the side and let them go, I think that's a good way to share the trail and just sort of have everyone get along and enjoy their experience out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great to know. So moving on to the next question that I have for you, and I don't want to spend too long on this, but let's say that you're a mile in from a restroom and you have little kids with you, like mine, and you ask them before you go, like,
Right.
do you need to use the restroom?
Yeah.
And then, of course, when you're a mile and a half away,
Sure.
they got to go.
That's the
What's the etiquette, and is it acceptable to how would you handle that situation? I mean, obviously, if you're an adult, you need to think about that beforehand.
Sure. Yeah, we all try to think about that beforehand and be prepared, but you know, we're humans and that's the way it goes for adults or kids. So just ask that you be discreet, right? You know, move off the trail, try to do it, you know, try to get to a spot where
Bury your toilet paper, make sure it's biodegradable maybe,
yeah,
or what's
I would ask in a that's great advice for a backcountry. I would ask in a Jeffco open space park that you do your best to pack it out.
Okay.
So if you got to do the number 2,
you need to be responsible for it.
Yeah, maybe think about, you know, having what you need like you would with a dog, whether it be a bag or whatever, and pack it out. That would be the best way to go. But we understand
it's going to be a
happens.
stinky hike out.
It will be
Just
a
go to the
stinky hike.
bathroom before you get on the trail,
Yeah,
people.
That's the best advice. But you know, yeah, that's just the way it goes.
Okay.
People got to go with it.
Well, we'll change the subject.
Yeah.
Let's move on to weapons.
Okay. Okay.
Can you carry a firearm in the park? Is there any hunting or fishing allowed?
So you cannot carry a firearm. You cannot openly display or use a gun or bow or a slingshot or even a paintball or BB gun, any of that within open space. You cannot have that firearm displayed. We understand that people have concealed carry permits, and they're in the parks with their concealed carry. If they're going in accordance with that concealed carry permit, no one knows because it's concealed. We don't go up and ask people if they're armed, you know, unless there's some reason to do so, you know. But you definitely can't come out and target shoot in our parks. You can't open carry in our parks.
Okay.
As far as fishing, absolutely, with a valid Colorado fishing license, and people 16 years and older need that in Colorado. You just fish in accordance with Colorado state law, and you can do that. And then hunting, you asked. We do have hunting at one park at Centennial Cone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a late season hunt, so that is December and January. We close that park just for hunting.
And that would be regulated by Game and Fish, same
yeah.
sort of, yeah.
Colorado Parks Fish and Wildlife.
Fish and Wildlife. Sorry, I screwed you up there, didn't I?
You did. Colorado Parks and Wildlife.
Okay,
so
my bad.
That's in Unit 38, okay, in Colorado. And so you have to have a valid hunting license. But then we also put people in a drawing, and this is a deer and elk hunt. We put people in a drawing, and then they got to get another permit with us because we limit the number that can go in there and hunt. So then we regulate it a little bit even further. And we do have some limited hunts. We have a couple areas, or one area that's closed to the public, but Parks and Wildlife now is to try to manage that elk herd a little bit. They're escorting people in there, first-time hunters and things like that.
Okay, so it's a guided hunt.
Yeah, so we don't. So generally speaking, there is no hunting, trapping on our parks. Where we do allow it, it's pretty well regulated. So yeah, you can't just get a hunting license and
go for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
All right.
It's a big no-no.
It's good to know. And if somebody wanted to find the rules and regulations and read them before they actually enter the park and do what they're kind of obligated to do, right? Yeah. Because ultimately, if you're in the park, it is your responsibility to know how to handle it, what the rules are.
Absolutely.
And I think it's great that you're on here and we're talking about it, but I think to actually get it to stick in your brain, the best way for me to handle it anyways is to actually read it.
Yeah.
And I know, like, at the park entrance or trailheads, a lot of times you guys will have a map.
Yep.
And you also have the rules and regulations there. And just to grab those and throw them in your backpack, you could start it while you're walking, reading the rules, right? And I think a map's a good thing to have too, just in case you get turned around out there, you know? Might help you out a little bit.
Absolutely. And that's why those are provided definitely at our kiosks at the main trailheads, maps, regulation brochures, so you can And there's always a map at the kiosk that you
Right,
look
the
a big one
oversized
too.
map. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's easier to look at than the little one.
Absolutely.
And I found myself a lot of times too, like sometimes I'll get there, maybe the maps will be out.
Yeah.
But everybody's got cell phones these
Take a
days.
photo of it.
Take a photo of it.
Yeah. And that's great. And so I can tell you the Ranger team loves people taking maps, because if you get hurt or you need help, to be able to reference that map and say where you're at is huge for us. Any sort of like medical calls or search and rescues, the most time consuming part is just finding that person. So
You're right.
It's really good to know where you're at and follow that map, and pay attention to when you're passing trail intersections and things like that. Just sort of knowing where you're at and being able to communicate that if you need help.
Yeah, if it's a true medical emergency, time is critical, right?
Absolutely. And we want to find you as best we can. So it's really important that people sort of know where they're at and pay attention to that. And then you can, if you want to plan your visit ahead of time, all those maps are on our website as well. So you can get a good sense of the difficulty or the length of a ride or bike you want to do, and where you're going to go, and that kind of stuff. So really, if you want to do some homework, check that out and before you even come out.
Okay. And I know that this is just pretty general, and this is common sense. Most people know this, but maybe some people don't. So I'm going to touch on it real quick. If there is an emergency inside the park and you have cell phone reception, who are you supposed to call? I mean, you wouldn't want to call the park rangers, because your guys probably aren't going to have as fast a response as dialing 911 and getting the actual medical attention that you need.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, 911, if it's a threat to life and limb, or your life, or or it's a crime in progress,
sure,
you definitely want to call 911 for sure. The Jeffco Rangers, we are dispatched out of the same center that dispatches law enforcement, so the sheriff's department and some of the local police departments within Jeffco. They dispatch the fire departments and us. So when you call 911 and you're in a park, that chain does kind of start to get a ranger coming your way.
Okay.
And that's the role we play too. Is we can we're all trained and certified in first aid. Mm-hmm. But also we really can help facilitate getting firefighters and law enforcement into the parks. We know the back ways and the emergency accesses and the best way to go. So if people can, be on the phone and really know where they're at.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to make it sound like you guys weren't capable.
No.
It's a culmination of everybody, right?
Absolutely.
But if it's a true emergency, the fastest dispatcher is probably going to be a 911.
Yes, absolutely. You're dead on. So don't call the open space office or whatever.
Right.
You're not, we might check that voicemail and get back to you the next day. We're usually not in there. Absolutely. So calling 911, if you have a real emergency, that's the best way to go. If it's something less than emergency, but you still need attention, like maybe you're lost, but you don't need someone there in 5 minutes, but you want people coming. If you call the Jefferson County, the non-emergency dispatch, that's another way to get a hold of us. But that you hit on it. It's 911 or calling the sheriff's department.
Okay.
To get help coming your way. That's the way to go.
All right.
Don't call our office or email me.
Is our tank gonna blow away?
And don't post it on Facebook and think we're gonna come help you.
I got you.
So yeah.
So do you happen to have that number on you, or Jeremy? Can you look that up for me if you got a second once you button down the hatches here? But yeah, I mean, I think everybody too should, if they have time. And one thing that I'm very adamant about with young children and stuff is, carry that first aid kit with you, or a first responders kit. Be versed or be educated in CPR. Maybe you don't have to take a class, but there's a ton of stuff online.
Yep.
I think a class or an actual certification is probably the best. But
yeah, that's
as much as you can help yourself out there.
Absolutely. So having a backpack with the 10 essentials. Extra water, extra food, first aid kit, extra layers, as we're experiencing right here in Colorado. Things change, right? Rain gear.
On a fly.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
That's all good. And knowing how to use that equipment is good.
Okay.
So the non-emergency number for
perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, that's 303-980-7300, 303-980-7300.
Cool.
And that's
I'm going to throw that in my phone contacts, so that way if I am out and I need to call you guys, it's easy. It's in there.
That's the way to get a hold of us if you want to talk to us then and there in the field. They dispatch us. That's the dispatch center that dispatches the Rangers too. So either 911 or that non-emergency number.
Sure. Hopefully we don't have to call them after a tent stake hits us in the head here. We'll get into the COVID thing a little bit here. And, there's been some confusion, and we've been asked a couple times, and I've had people, I have a lot of friends that live down the hill, and they'll call me and they're like, hey, are the parks open? Can we come up? Do you know what's up? And it was kind of this gray area when this whole thing went down. And obviously, everybody was trying to figure everything out at once, what the rules were, how we were going to combat this. And then the rules change every day and that sort of thing. Are Jeffco all Jeffco open space parks open every day, or how do the closures work? I mean, obviously, I think that you guys post them on your website, and that's where I directed some of my not so smart friends to. Like, why are you calling me? Look at the website.
So, okay. Touching on the COVID thing that we're all living through right now, right?
Yeah.
So, we have not closed parks for COVID-19. So, I think. Dates, I'm going to get a little fuzzy on dates now when all this started.
Oh, it's all blending together, man. It's really hard to keep track of it.
But when we went to the stay-at-home, order in mid-March, our park stayed open. And I think the governor, came out and said, go out and take a hike. And so these open spaces and parks really became the only thing for people.
It was crazy because they were, the first couple days of it, they were more packed than I had ever seen them. Yeah. Like the parking lots overflowing. Yeah. People parked crazy on the side of the road, and it actually scared me a little bit.
It was. It's been interesting to watch. I think at open space within the last few years, we've already had the feeling of, boy, our visitation is just going up and up and up, and how do we manage that? With parking lot size and just the response to calls and the additional impact to the resource. How do we manage that? And then COVID hit, and I was like, oh wow, this is even bigger. So
so you were just talking about the influx in population and visitors and tourism and all that stuff it's pretty crazy. I've watched it grow a lot too.
And right here where we sit at Alder Three Sisters. Anyone that lives around here or visits this park knows that on the weekend, you're not going to park in the parking lot. It's all parking up and down the road. And so we have, tried to wrap our minds around how we manage these parks. We still have a finite amount of land, but way more visitors coming. And how do we balance all that? And then COVID hit, and it just exploded, right? Our visitation is just through the roof because there's nothing else to do. And it also gets to sort of... what we were talking a little bit about earlier, we also have people visiting parks that maybe have not before or have not done it in a very long time. So that education part, we're really starting at the ground level. Okay. So where we're at now is, we feel it's important for people to have that outlet for stress, to be able to come out and just get away. You're cooped up in your house all day. It's important.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to facilitate that with just not having the parks be completely overrun. And it's a bit of a challenge right now. So we have guidelines. We're following guidelines, and we've posted it on our Facebook, on our website, at every trailhead.
I've seen the signs everywhere. Even in the middle of the park, I've seen or smaller signs pointing you towards the advisory signs.
So it's the things that people have heard all throughout this. If you're sick, stay at home. Don't come to the park. If you need to do that 6 feet of social distancing. No groups of more than 4, and people should be wearing masks. And also because dogs off leash, they bring people into close proximity.
Sure,
that's not what we want. So right now, again, the other thing we started doing on the weekends was doing temporary closures. So we haven't officially closed any park for COVID-19 or anything like that, like some other places have done, and we're feeling some of that pressure too. Clear Creek County closed.
Yeah.
Red Rocks Park closed. So we have some of that pressure now. Now there's even less places for people to go.
Right, so they're coming
Yeah.
into yours now.
Yeah, and we're the first people. If you're going to go up to the mountains, this is the first place you're going to stop that looks like the mountains, right?
Right.
Here's where you stop at Jeffco, and we have these fantastic parks for people to come enjoy. So we want people to follow those guidelines, and we've started doing temporary closures on the weekends just because we have now become so overrun, and the criteria we're looking at those temporary closures, they're done at the discretion of the ranger at that time. And what we're looking at is when we pull into a park and all the legal parking is full. People are now parking out on the road into the neighborhood legally and illegally, and there's still now a constant stream of vehicles coming in. We know we've reached that point where we can't take any more visitors into this park. So we will close that trailhead for whatever it takes, an hour or two, to sort of let it kind of,
Sure.
clear out a little bit, and then we'll open it up again.
So potentially somebody could look at the website and the park could be open. Then they get in their car. 30 minutes later, the park's closed.
Yep. And that's a problem. That's happening. We not quite sure yet how to do that differently. I think we are committed, and we feel it's important.
Let me just say this: I think it's great that you guys are keeping it open as long as you can. And obviously, if it's getting overrun or overpacked, we don't want that right now. So I think you guys are doing the best that you can.
Yeah, and that's it too. And also understanding the impact to the community and the neighborhood, to have all that traffic. If you live around a park, that impacts your life, and so we're conscious of that too. So it's trying to provide safety for our visitor, trying to protect the resources in the park, but also having a mind to what our neighbors might be going through with the influx of just cars. And
that makes sense. I didn't really think about the neighbors.
And so we're conscious of all those things. And, one of the things we're doing is, our jurisdiction sort of ends at the park boundary. So if people go park illegally in a neighborhood, we can't go write tickets for that.
Right.
But when we do a temporary closure, what we'll also say is, well, you can't hike or bike in either, because we don't want you parking in that neighborhood and coming in. So that's the way we'll try to dissuade that.
Okay.
But
so it's not a capacity number or anything like that. You're just kind of, because you can't tell. There's so many entrances to every park, and some of them come out of neighborhoods where residents come out of. And
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, our parks are very porous. We have neighborhood access points. Almost all our parks have multiple ways to come in, so that won't work at every park.
Right.
What I was talking about.
There's not somebody sitting there with a clicker.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's more of just this. The lot is full. They're parking into the neighborhood, and there's no sign that people are slowing coming in. We have to stop this right now. We can't take more people. And you're right. People may drive and come, drive for a while and show up at the park. And we've had those conversations, but it wasn't on your website. It's like, we're not going to be able to. So people just need to understand that this is the age we're living in.
Yeah.
And maybe try, first I would recommend you do your recreation near your home. So if you've got a local park, or you can get out for a run or a bike ride within your neighborhood, that should be your first option. It really should.
Yeah, and I think the governor's been pretty adamant about that.
Absolutely.
Almost every press briefing that he's had or whatever, he's mentioned that.
And so beyond that, if you do make that decision to come to the park, on the weekends between 10 and 2, this is what it's going to be like. You're probably going to come to a temporary closure. You just kind of know that ahead of time. And I don't really have a good place to send other people. People say when they come to the park and it's closed, can I go somewhere else? You might, but it's going to look just like this.
Right.
So it's a challenge right now with that, just trying to stay up with that. So I would just encourage people to, do their recreation around their house as we can sort of get through this. If you do come to the park, we're open 1 hour before sunrise to 1 hour after sunset. You might want to find some more creative times to come.
Sure.
Early morning or
during the week.
Later. Yeah, and during the week. 10 to 2 on a weekend, I would say don't bother.
Forget about it.
Forget about it.
Okay.
You're going to have a very different experience. Very different experience. Than
I don't even use the park on the weekends unless it's at 6 in the morning, when I normally use it anyways. But
parking will be a hassle. There will be a lot of people on the trail. And if you're looking to sort of get away, that's probably not the experience you're going to have.
I agree.
Yeah. So.
All right. So I think we've pretty much covered the COVID-19 thing, and we've been really beating it up on the podcast, and I'm trying to get people to listen to something else, but I think that was useful information. Is there anything else that you want to share on that subject?
Just be safe. Follow the guidelines. I think they're pretty well reasoned out, and just follow the guidelines and be safe and use common sense. Keep your distance from people. Wash your hands. Don't come to crowded parks. And be nice a little bit too. It's sort of just it's been interesting to watch kind of attitudes each week, how they've gone.
Yeah, go to the grocery store. Jeez.
Yeah.
Don't wear a mask and you're in deep
exactly.
crap. Yeah.
There'll be a lot of that.
Or go the wrong way down an aisle.
Social shaming, right? So it seemed like the first week or two was a lot of thanks for staying open and being out. We appreciate everything you do. Now it's more kind of like, don't tell me what to do,
Yeah. People are
stressed.
Yeah.
And it shows. And so be nice to the park rangers, be nice to our maintenance workers that are out there, really working hard to sanitize restrooms and keep them clean. And be nice to the other park visitors. And you're going to have a little bit of patience.
I got to say the restrooms are the cleanest I've ever seen them.
We're hitting them a lot, and so that's really a focus for us, the rangers as well as our park services. I mean, between the runs going through, each restroom's probably getting cleaned 4 or 5 times a day, and the process is a lot longer now. We'll spray it down and sanitize it, and that sanitizer's got to kind of float in the air and rest for about 10 minutes, and then so the cleaning takes longer. So give us time when we shut a restroom. We know you got to go, but really you want to wait that extra minute so you're getting into a sanitized restroom. So,
that makes sense.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I think that pretty much covers all the rules now that we're 45 minutes into the show or whatever it is, 40 minutes, which, it's good stuff to know. But I think there's information out there, and I know that sometimes you guys have it posted, but I'd like to go through some of the wildlife that you might encounter and talk about what you do if you do encounter a large predator. Mm-hmm. So maybe we'll just kind of go down the list and go through there. And then I also would like to touch on if you do end up encountering that animal, what do you do in the first place? And then if that animal attacks you, what are you supposed to do? Okay. Because I think this is useful information for anybody to have. So I guess we could just start, black bears are native to Colorado and run through here all the time. And they end up in a lot of neighborhoods and a lot of trash cans and that sort of thing. Yeah. And we all kind of know the basics, but if we could just hit on the basics if you encounter one on a trail.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll put black bears and mountain lions together. They're very different animals, and they may act differently, but how you want to react to them is very similar.
Okay.
And all Jeffco open space parks, all of them are habitat for those big animals we have in Colorado.
Yeah.
So black bears or mountain lions, really any one of our parks, you can anticipate one of those animals moving through that at some point. So it's the first thing, the most important thing is just give them their space. Don't ever approach really any wild animal, but certainly a mountain lion or bear. So you got to give it space, and you've got to not play into their instinct to be a predator. So animals like deer turn and run when they see or sense a mountain lion. That's not what people should do because we're not prey. So you always just want to face that animal, make yourself look big if that's putting up your arms or
opening your coat,
spreading a coat, that kind of thing. Make yourself look big. Make yourself look bigger. Don't turn your back. Don't run. Talk to that animal in a firm voice, a loud voice. It's
try to be as confident as possible.
Yeah, just
right?
like get away. Stop. Get away.
Do you recommend yelling at all, or
loud? Don't scream and sound like a
dying rabbit.
Exactly. Yeah. There you go. Don't sound like that, but be loud and let that animal know that I'm not prey. So you gotta face that animal, begin to back away slowly, okay, and then create that more distance. If an animal were to attack, you got to fight back. So anything you may have heard about playing dead or whatever.
Yeah, because that's an old myth with bears, right? You're supposed to play dead.
Yeah. So black bears and mountain lions, you'd want to fight back with anything you have. A pocket knife, a rock, a stick, your backpack, your hands. fight back and keep fighting. Okay.
Mhm.
Luckily, those instances are rare.
Yeah. How often do you encounter that
Of
a year, or if you you said you've been in 15 years now?
15 years with Jeffco, 20 years total. I, I'd really have to go back and think. I can't recall one bear or mountain lion attack within our parks. I just can't
Uh-huh.
recall. I don't think it's happened.
They don't really want to be around people.
They do not.
And I grew up here, and I've touched on this before on the podcast. I spent all my time outside.
Yeah.
We didn't have TV on demand.
Right.
We didn't have, iPads and video games at that point, or maybe we couldn't afford a video game even if it was out then, right? So I spent all my time outside. And growing up here my entire childhood, up to 40, I've only seen one mountain lion in the wild.
Yeah.
They're pretty skittish.
And that's my experience.
Mm-hmm.
Is I've seen one. She had cubs with her at the time, which was super cool. And every, I don't know, bears, I've probably seen 25 or 30 bears,
Mm-hmm.
and their reactions have all been similar. They take a moment to look at you, sort of gain some recognition at what they're seeing, and each one I've ever had sort of turns and moves the other way quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that doesn't mean they're always going to do that. They are dangerous animals, and they're big animals.
Yeah, they're wild animals.
And you got to give them their space. But I don't think you should come to an open space park with fear of that. But you should recognize that they're here and they exist, and know the things to do if you see one. What we didn't touch on here, and it's not so much of an issue here at Evergreen, but rattlesnakes. We have a lot of those in any of our kind of front range parks. You should expect that there's rattlesnakes around. So it's important with rattlesnakes. Is, again, give them their space, right? They're a lot easier to give space to than a bear or a lion. They can't move that quick. So it's really just sort of backing away, giving that animal space, not trying to move it off the trail, that kind of thing. Just give it its space. Stay on the trail. We talked about staying on a trail. Rattlesnakes is a good reason to do that.
Yeah.
Because putting your foot or your hand, next to a rock or a shrub or that kind of thing where you can't see, might be a problem.
And we have pygmy rattlers here, so they can be very small too, right?
Well,
or are they
here in Jeffco, we have prairie rattlesnakes.
Okay.
So if you're seeing a small one, it's a young one.
Uh-huh.
So we have prairie rattlesnakes. They're relatively docile, but still not something you want to approach or be next to. They bite in self-defense with people. They're not necessarily trying to kill that person. They're more focused on killing a mouse or something that size to eat. But certainly they will strike in self-defense. So just give them their space. Don't try to handle them or do anything like that. Just give them space and give them a chance to move. And be careful when you're off trail where you're putting your hands on your feet.
Sure. If you do get bit, I know that it's really important not to panic, right?
Yeah.
To try to stay as calm as you can. Obviously, call for medical attention right away. But maybe you can touch on this a little bit more. But the idea or the concept behind that is when you get bit or injected with some sort of venom, it travels through your bloodstream and it's trying to get to your heart ultimately, right?
Yeah.
So if you're running out of the park to get medical attention, probably not the best idea because it's going to get your blood flowing faster.
Yeah, absolutely. You nailed it right on the head.
Okay.
So as calm as you can be after just getting bit by a rattlesnake, first of all, move away from that rattlesnake and do so in a manner, try to watch where you're putting your feet, that sometimes there's others around. So you just got to get away from that immediate danger. And I would stop and call 911 and wait for us and medical to get to you and take you out. So that, just like you said, that's a good way of knowing where you're at and calling 911. That would be a perfect response. Running or walking fast out is not good because, like you said, that venom's moving through your blood and you want to slow that down. So you will need medical attention. Don't try to just sleep this off at home. Rarely are they fatal, but
well, it can cause some muscle tissue damage and stuff too if you don't get it taken care of, right? Because it basically breaks down your muscle or the tissue in that area.
People have different reactions and levels of severity, but it's definitely get medical attention as soon as you can, but do it calmly. So, yeah.
Awesome. Great info. Mm-hmm. What are some things that people could do that they could carry with them for protection in case they encounter a large predator that's going to attack them? I mean, there's bear spray and stuff out there. Do you recommend that? I know that a lot of people will put bells on their shoes or on their backpack or, have a conversation while you're hiking with people, right? To let other animals know you're around.
I think that's great. The bells and stuff. I've never really looked too much into the bear spray, so I don't want to speak to its effectiveness. I just don't know that much. But I think a bell, talking, letting the animal know you're there, and they'll usually move on before you get there. I think a walking stick is good to use to hit an animal with. Just that basic, I think, is a good thing to have. And then I know we talked a little bit about COVID when I encourage people to come earlier or later. That's great for missing a crowded park, but those times also you probably increase your chance to have an encounter with wildlife because they're going to be sort of pushed
out of their natural habitats and stuff like that.
Well, no, they're going to be more active at dawn and in the evening.
Got it. Right? Yeah.
So you got more of a chance during those times. So just another thing to think about, I guess, with COVID is like a crowded park or increase your chances of a wildlife encounter by coming earlier or late.
I wonder if bear spray would work on a lion. I know I've asked that question before. Jeremy, you want to see if you can look that up? Like they make like this bear mace. It's a big can, and maybe just see if it's recommended on the label or whatever.
Yeah, they make that stuff, the bear spray. I just don't know enough about it.
Yeah, I've never had to use it.
If it works or not.
Thank God.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Two mountain lion researchers in Montana were tagging cubs, and the female approached them and swiped at their hound, and then they hit it twice with some bear spray, and it ran over and laid 20 yards away, left them alone. I think you're taking that risk when you're staring down the barrel of a lion.
Yeah, it's probably better than teeth and claws. All right, so we're kind of coming up on an hour, and I don't want to chew up into your time, and you have other responsibilities and places you need to be, but we'd like to know, or let our listeners know, how can they support you guys in any way? Is there anything that they can do while they're in a park, or I know that you guys are full staffed and you weren't even in your offices since this COVID-19 things happened. So I would imagine you guys are putting in some pretty long hours and stuff. What are some ways that we can support Jefferson County or support park rangers specifically?
I think just to sum up really all the stuff we've talked about.
Okay.
I think
just follow the rules.
Yeah, being prepared. So you don't find yourself in a situation where you're lost or unfortunately you may be hurt. Just be careful and be safe. So all those resources that come when you're lost or hurt, there are a lot. It's rangers, it's firefighters, it's law enforcement, it's alpine search and rescue, and that's a lot of people to get moving to come. So be prepared. Try not to get in those situations. When you do come to a park, just follow the regulations and follow the rules. I mean, I think there's good thought behind why they're there, and the more people that follow them, it's just a better experience.
Sure, we don't want to use all of our emergency resources too, because there's somebody that may need it to get to a hospital or something like that right now too. And I think that's one reason why the governor has put in place the stay-at-home order, right? Yeah. So there's not car accidents and all this other normal stuff that they have to deal with.
Absolutely. And then, then that's just the resources here in the park. And then you go to a hospital and you've got doctors and nurses and assistants and everything else. So just be careful, be prepared. Try not to get lost, have the right, 10 essentials with you, and then follow the rules when you come. And then be patient and nice. Your park experience is going to be different than what you remembered even just a few months ago. And, all the people that are there, they're coming out with the same intention as you. They need to get out just for their own sanity and get some exercise and fresh air. So if we could all just kind of keep that in mind and get along, and then really right now, follow those COVID guidelines. If you can, recreate near your home. If you do come to a park, just follow those guidelines, the social distancing, the staying at home when sick, and no large groups. I think that's really important. That'd be a big help.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
And you guys offer a bunch of free education too, don't you, right? Probably not now during this pandemic, but I know during the summer my kids have taken a couple programs, and I mean, even though our tax dollars pay for that, it's free. There's no additional fee for a lot of those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where could somebody find out about that and what you guys offer?
Go to our website.
Okay.
So just go there, and that's where you'll find everything, right? So you're right. We have scaled back our public programs to basically zero right now. Hopefully, at some point, we can bring that again. But we have programs for adults. We have them for kids, and sort of everything in between, to just really teach people about these awesome parks that we have and the wildlife and everything.
It's great. What a great resource.
Yeah.
Can you tell people what the website is and your Instagram and all that sort of stuff, just so they know where to find you guys? Or Jeremy, can you help look some of that up?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can look that up, and we'll put some links in the.
Yeah, I'll definitely add a link to the show notes.
So you can go to the website. There's a lot of our rangers.
I think it's jeffco.us
/
open space.
And there's a hyphen between open and space.
Oh, okay.
And that's our website. And you'll find all the programs and things like that on there.
There's probably a link to the Facebook and Instagram and all the social media platforms
Follow
there.
us on Facebook and Twitter and all that stuff. Rangers will tweet out in real time, obviously, things that are going on in the parks and get that information out that way too. So, and we have a whole community connections team that they're just right on the ball with any of the latest information that goes out through social media or website, all the signs we have in our parks. That's a great way to get information, but I would just start with the website.
Awesome. Thank you again so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Thanks for inviting us into the great park, man. This is awesome.
It's a great office.
Maybe we'll have to do more of these.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah, please stay in touch. And for all of our listeners out there, stay safe and enjoy the outdoors when you can.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
You got something, Jeremy?